My brother ruined my wedding by making my fiancée believe I had cheated on her. She believed him, but 3 years later, an unexpected call from my sister revealed a truth that changed everything. Hello, Reddy. This happened a few years ago, but I only now feel ready to tell it. Full disclosure right away. The story is so absurd it sounds like it's straight out of a movie, but I swear it was completely real. They say family is everything, right? Well, sometimes it's family that has the knife hidden behind their back, and I learned that the hard way, thanks to my own brother. It all started long before I met my ex-fiancée, Natalie. It actually began with my brother Ben and his then-girlfriend Chloe. Now, Ben wasn't just dating her. He was completely obsessed. Seriously, he planned their entire future with Chloe. He already had the ring picked out and spoke of her as if she were the best thing that had ever happened to him. The whole family knew because he wouldn't stop repeating how perfect she was. To me, she seemed common, nice, but nothing special. But for Ben, she was practically divine. He organized his weekends around Chloe's work schedule, and if she preferred to go out with her friends, he would genuinely get upset. Now that I think about it, she never showed she was as involved as he was. During family dinners, she was polite, but distant. She checked her phone constantly and often left early with some excuse. Ben did huge things for her. Surprise trips, expensive jewelry, elaborate dates, and she responded only with indifference. But he didn't see anything. The only one who noticed what was happening was our sister, Laura. Laura, 2 years younger than me, is a nurse at the county hospital and has always been the most sensible of us all. From the beginning, she said Chloe seemed to be constantly acting, that she wasn't authentic. "She's playing Ben," she told me once, "and when she leaves him, it's going to be a disaster." And boy, was it ever. It all exploded at the family barbecue on the 4th of July. It's something we do every year with neighbors, cousins, uncles. Ben had been excited for weeks because he planned to propose to Chloe that day. At first, everything was fine. Uncle Robert was telling bad jokes as always. My cousin Stephen was shining on the volleyball court, the usual. Then, without warning, Ben knelt in the middle of the yard in front of everyone. What happened next froze us. Chloe simply stood up and said with total coldness, "I can't do this." "I don't love you, Ben. I never loved you. I tried to feel something because you're a good guy, but I can't marry someone when I have feelings for another person." Everything fell silent. Even the neighbor's dog stopped barking. Ben stood motionless, as if she had spoken another language, and then came the final blow. Chloe looked straight at me and said, "I'm in love with your brother." I didn't know what to say. We had barely exchanged words at family gatherings. Nothing more. But Ben exploded. He started shouting that I had betrayed him, that I was a miserable wretch, that I had been deceiving him for a long time. I tried to explain that I knew nothing, that I had never encouraged it, that I had never felt anything for Chloe. It didn't matter. In his head, I had stolen his girlfriend. Chloe tried to calm him, saying it wasn't my fault, that she had simply developed feelings over time. But Ben refused to listen. He peeled out of the driveway in his car. She left shortly after, crying and apologizing. The only person who approached me was Laura. "This isn't your fault," she told me. "She was never going to marry him, and deep down he knew it." One would think that would be the end of it. A girl confesses she's not in love, a mess breaks out, and life moves on. But not for Ben. That was just the beginning of his personal crusade to destroy me. After what happened, I thought he would cool down after a few days. We had argued before, like any pair of brothers, but this time was different. First, Ben bombarded Chloe with messages for an entire week. She showed me some, although she tried to contact me after the incident. I made it clear to her that I wouldn't get involved anymore, but Ben was sending her 30 messages a day, some pleading for her to return, others insulting her, truly toxic behavior. And when she blocked him, he changed his target. Me. At first it was small things. He ate the food I left at our parents' house. He forgot to pass important messages to me. Stupid things. But then he got creative, And that's when I knew this wasn't going to end soon. First, it was my close circle. Ben left passive-aggressive comments on my posts. Things like, "Funny coming from you," or "Look who's talking." Then he would delete them before I could screenshot them. My best friend Tom, with whom I'd shared the court since college, started acting weird, distant, evasive, declining invitations. I confronted him, and that's when I learned the truth. Ben had been telling him that I had been speaking ill of him for years. And why did he believe it? "Why would your own brother lie?" he replied. It was the same pattern with everyone. He invented horrible things I had supposedly said, always with details that made everything credible. And even though they were lies, he knew exactly what to say to cause damage. But the worst was at work. I was at a small tech company, about 30 people, good salary, good atmosphere. I was even about to be promoted to team leader, something very important to me, barely 2 years after graduating. And then everything started to change. My boss casually mentioned that he had heard rumors that I was looking for a job at another company. False. A colleague asked me if it was true that I had said the company was poorly managed. Also a lie. It took me months to realize. Ben would call my office, pretending to be different people. He claimed to be a recruiter, a friend, a client, and always left insinuations to harm me. He literally created false identities to sabotage my career. I didn't get the promotion. The boss's treatment of me changed. The atmosphere at work became tense. People started looking at me as if I were a disloyal traitor who spoke badly of everyone, and when I finally confronted Ben, he pretended not to know what I was talking about. "I don't know what you're talking about, brother. Maybe people are just starting to see who you really are," Ben said to me with an arrogant smile, one of those smiles that makes you want to land a punch right on his face. I tried to talk to my parents, hoping they would bring some sanity to all this. Big mistake. They were already completely convinced of his version, that I was a manipulator who had interfered in his relationship with Chloe and was now playing the victim. My mother even told me, "Honey, maybe this is karma for what you did with Ben and Chloe's relationship." What I did? I literally did nothing. I just shared a last name with a girl who had feelings that I never sought or reciprocated. But of course, to my parents, Ben was the victim, and I was the cause of all the drama. The only person who wasn't fooled was Laura. She would call me after every family dinner where Ben played his martyr role. She told me not to pay attention to what they said, and tried to defend me in front of our parents, but they had already closed ranks. And this is where everything spun out of control, where the sibling rivalry went from a childish conflict to genuine madness. I met Natalie about 2 years after that disaster with Chloe. By that time, I had given up any possibility of reconciliation with Ben. I was focused on moving forward. I had gotten a job at another company. The previous one never recovered from the internal damage Ben caused me. I moved to an apartment in another area, and I finally felt like I was at peace. Natalie was fun, intelligent, with a dry wit that fit perfectly with mine. She came from a town outside the city, one of those places where families are large, noisy, and full of opinions, the opposite of the passive aggression I grew up with. We dated for 1.5 years, and one day I proposed. She accepted before I finished the question. We had stable jobs, similar goals, and a solid relationship. Planning the wedding was a pleasant experience, which many said was unusual. Natalie's family welcomed me with open arms. After years, I felt like I had a real family again. Even my parents seemed happy, which surprised me. Laura was happy for me from day one. She adored Natalie. She said it was clear how happy we made each other. She helped me with the preparations, organized the bachelorette party, and was even one of my witnesses, as we had decided on a mixed wedding party. Ben, for his part, remained strangely quiet throughout the engagement. He came to family gatherings when Natalie was there. He spoke courteously. He even congratulated us when we announced the date. I naively wanted to believe that he had finally gotten over Chloe, that he had matured. How wrong I was. The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday in June, about 20 minutes outside the city. Nothing ostentatious, about 80 guests, an outdoor ceremony, and a reception at the same venue. Natalie wanted something simple and elegant, and I would have married her in a gas station if that's what she wanted. We agreed to keep the tradition of not seeing each other the night before. She stayed with her bridesmaids at her parents' house, and I was supposed to go out with my friends for a farewell party, but I wasn't in the mood for parties. I was nervous, excited, and needed some peace and quiet. I booked a room near the event hall and turned off my phone at 9 p.m. I just wanted to rest and be ready for the big day. The next morning I got dressed and headed to the venue. I thought I was about to live one of the happiest days of my life. I didn't know that everything had already been ruined. When I arrived at the venue, something wasn't right. There were too many cars in the parking lot for it to be so early. People were gathered in groups, speaking in low voices, with serious looks. The atmosphere was tense, as if a tragedy had occurred. I entered the hall. Everything was decorated, flowers, arrangements, lights, but the atmosphere was funereal, as if instead of a wedding, I was attending my own wake. The first person to see me was Mary, Natalie's maid of honor. Her look wasn't of sadness or even disappointment. It was pure contempt. She approached me and slapped me so hard my ears rang. "How could you do this to her? How could you betray Natalie like that?" she yelled. Everyone turned to look at me. Family, friends, guests who had already arrived. Everyone was watching me as if I were a criminal. I tried to ask what was happening, where Natalie was, that I needed to talk to her. Mary laughed with a bitter tone that sent chills down my spine. "She's gone, Trash. She's gone and she's not coming back. She already knows what you did." That's when Ben emerged from the crowd. He was wearing his best man suit, but he looked more like an executioner than a guest, and he had that expression, that triumphant smile. "I'm sorry, brother," he said clearly so everyone could hear. "I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but I couldn't allow her to marry you without knowing the truth." He pulled out his phone and started showing photos to those present. From where I was, I couldn't see them, but the reaction said it all. Surprise, disgust, indignation. "This is Jessica," he announced. "She came because she couldn't live with the guilt. She's been dating my brother for the last 4 months, including last night." A woman in her mid-20s, blonde and dressed more elegantly than necessary, stepped forward. She looked nervous, as if waiting for Ben's instructions, but she played her role precisely. "I'm so sorry," she said in a broken voice. "I didn't think this would go so far. He promised me he would call off the wedding, that he would choose me. But when I found out he was still going ahead with the plans, I couldn't keep quiet. I tried to defend myself, to say I had never seen that woman in my life, but no one was listening. Ben showed supposed text conversations between her and me, intimate photos, and even a video he claimed to have recorded the night before. Everything was perfectly fabricated, and that wasn't the worst part. The worst was seeing my own parents remain silent. No one defended me. No one questioned Ben's story or seemed surprised by his words. My mother, in fact, nodded her head while he recounted how difficult it had been for him to expose his own brother. I insisted again and again that they show me the alleged evidence, those photos and messages that, according to him, proved I had been unfaithful. But Ben had planned everything to perfection. He said he had already shown everything to Natalie and her family, that they had seen enough, and there was no point in humiliating me further by making public what was already clear. Someone mentioned the possibility of calling Natalie, of trying to get her to come back to clarify things, but that's when Ben delivered his final blow. She doesn't want to see him. She made that more than clear. If he tries to contact her, she'll call the police. The silence in the room was absolute. Not even I knew what to say. The woman I was going to marry in less than 2 hours thought I was a traitor. I stood there in my suit, in front of friends and family, watching my entire life fall apart. The wedding was canceled, Natalie disappeared, and everyone around me believed I was a despicable liar. And the person responsible for all of it was my own brother. I didn't want to fight anymore. What was the point? No one was going to believe me over the evidence Ben had fabricated. No one was going to doubt his word or that of the mysterious woman backing him up. Everything was already lost. I left the venue without looking back, and drove straight home. I didn't talk to anyone, didn't try to justify myself, didn't even take off the suit. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall, trying to process what had just happened. Around dinner time, my phone started ringing. It was Natalie. For a second, I thought maybe she had discovered the truth, that she wanted to hear me out. I answered as soon as I saw her name. "Don't ever contact me again," she said in an icy, unrecognizable voice. "If you call me, if you text me, if you go near my house or my job, I will call the police. We are over forever." She hung up before I could say anything. And as if that wasn't enough, that same night, near midnight, Ben showed up at my door. He was still wearing his suit as if nothing had happened, with a smile that made me want to punch it off his face. I opened the door. He was smiling as if he had won an award. "How does it feel?" he asked me. In that instant, something inside me broke. All the years of resentment, of his lies and manipulations, exploded in my head. I grabbed him by the collar of his shirt and pushed him against the hallway wall. "You ruined my life," I said through clenched teeth. "All of this for a woman who didn't even love you." Ben started laughing while I had him pinned against the wall. "And I'd do it again. You took Chloe from me, my plans, my happiness, so I took yours. Justice." I wanted to destroy him right there. I wanted to hit him until he was forced to confess what he had done, until everyone knew the truth. But I realized that was exactly what he wanted, for me to lose control, to act like the unstable guy he had described in front of everyone. So I opened the door and threw him out. He walked away whistling as if he'd had the best day of his life. And yes, I was a fool. I should have recorded that conversation. But rage blinded me. I didn't think clearly. All I did was walk away. I spent 3 years trying to rebuild my life, and it didn't go badly. I got a better job. I moved to another city. I achieved some stability. Of my whole family, I only continued talking to Laura, who had moved to Denver for work. We talked every so often. She never believed Ben's version. She kept me informed of things happening at home. That's how I found out the following. 6 months after my ruined wedding, Ben and Natalie officially started dating. Yes, you read that right. They moved in together, got married in less than a year, and quickly had a child. From the outside, everything seemed perfect. Ben had gotten everything he wanted, and Natalie seemed happy. But Laura always knew. "He doesn't love her," she told me once. "He just loves that he won, and as soon as that euphoria passes, everything will fall apart." And she was right. Ben wasn't the attentive husband he pretended to be. After they married, he stopped trying. He worked late, missed family gatherings, forgot anniversaries and birthdays. He acted like someone who only wanted the trophy, not the relationship. Over time, Natalie started calling Laura with uncomfortable questions. Was he always like this? Was he always so cold, so absent? At first, Laura tried to remain neutral, but it became impossible to ignore the signs. And then, a month ago, she called me with unexpected news. "Everything's falling apart," she said. "Natalie found out Ben was cheating on her. She's filing for divorce. And the most unbelievable part? You won't believe who he was cheating with. It was Jessica. Yes, the same woman Ben used to destroy my wedding. They had been seeing each other in secret for years, possibly since before my wedding day. The irony was too perfect. The woman he used to fabricate my ruin ended up ruining his own marriage. But the story didn't end there. When Natalie confronted Jessica, expecting denials or at least some shame, she completely broke down. She not only confessed to the infidelity, but to everything else: the fake photos, the manipulated messages, the fabricated video, the entire plan Ben had orchestrated to destroy me. Laura, who had been waiting 3 years for that moment, didn't hesitate. When a tearful Natalie asked for my number so she could talk to me, Laura was ready. "I need to see him," Natalie told her. "I need to apologize. I need to fix this." That's when I understood what I had to do. "I have a plan," I told Laura. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" she asked. "It's time for justice," I replied. "Count me in," she said without hesitation. Whatever you need. Laura contacted Jessica through a mutual friend, pretending to be someone who just wanted to understand what had happened. They agreed to meet at a cafe in Denver. Laura pretended to be helping Natalie process everything and needed to hear the other side. I traveled to Denver the following week. Laura explained how we should act. Be empathetic, not accusatory, as if we were just family trying to understand the disaster. When we met Jessica, her appearance said it all. Swollen eyes, exhausted face. She hadn't slept for days. Remorse was consuming her. And Laura handled everything with impeccable composure, as if she genuinely wanted us all to heal. It was Laura who suggested that Jessica tell us everything that had happened in detail, supposedly so Natalie could understand how everything had fallen apart. Jessica didn't take long to let everything out. She recounted how Ben had approached her 8 months before my wedding, offering her $5,000 to help him teach his brother a lesson. She detailed how they had fabricated the photos and messages together over several weeks, and how he had meticulously coached her on what to say and when to say it. But the real bomb dropped when she tearfully confessed that throughout the whole farce, she and Ben had been having an affair. She told me Ben had promised her he would leave Natalie after a few years. In her words, once he proved he could take anything away from his brother, he would get rid of Natalie too. It was always temporary. Laura kept her talking for over an hour, noting every part of the plan Ben had designed. By the time we left that cafe, we had enough evidence to destroy him legally. The next morning, I filed a police report for fraud and conspiracy. I also contacted a lawyer to initiate a civil lawsuit for defamation, emotional distress, and tortious interference with a contract. Apparently, the disaster of my wedding qualified perfectly as contractual interference. When the detective assigned to the case heard Jessica's confession, he whistled. He told me, "This is one of the most elaborate revenge schemes I've seen in my career. Your brother invested a lot of effort into ruining your life. The problem is that he's now missing. His wife claimed he had emptied the joint bank account and hadn't returned home in a week. Ben knew that sooner or later everything would come to light. He had prepared his escape in the same meticulous way he organized the rest of his plan, but fleeing only served to make him look even more guilty, and at the same time, it gave us time to build a bulletproof case while he hid God knows where." The detective issued an arrest warrant but warned me that locating him would take time. Meanwhile, Natalie filed for divorce and obtained emergency custody of her daughter. She also provided more evidence that reinforced my report: messages between her and Ben, financial records showing payments to Jessica, and even the original fake photos he had shown her. It was at that point that my parents finally called me. After hearing about the police investigation, they were devastated. They couldn't believe their good son was capable of something so cruel and calculated. They begged me to come home, to give them a chance to make things right. I told them we would talk about it after Ben faced justice. There are bridges that cannot be rebuilt until the person who burned them pays for it. I had evidence, I had witnesses, and I had 3 years of accumulated rage as fuel to see this through to the end. The search for Ben was just beginning. 4 months after his disappearance, I can tell you the judicial system moves slower than a state office on a Monday morning. But we didn't waste time. We were building what my lawyer called the most documented case of sibling revenge he had ever seen. Jessica agreed to cooperate fully with the prosecution in exchange for immunity. It was a smart move, because otherwise she would have faced conspiracy charges. We ultimately discovered that Ben had paid her much more than the initial $5,000. During the 8 months they planned my ruin, he transferred nearly $15,000 to her in what he called consulting fees. The transaction trail was irrefutable and made it clear that this had not been an impulsive decision. It was a calculated campaign. My lawyer, a former prosecutor turned defender with years of experience, laughed when he heard Jessica's recording. "Your brother is either the most clumsy criminal I've ever seen, or he was so confident in himself that he believed he would never be caught. Either way, he's toast." The civil lawsuit progressed faster than the criminal one. Since Ben was a fugitive, the court allowed the process to continue without his physical presence. We filed claims for lost wages, emotional damages, and a hefty sum for punitive damages due to the malice with which he acted. Then Natalie called me directly. It was our first conversation in years. "I need to see you," she said. I agreed to meet her. Laura accompanied me for emotional support. Natalie was unrecognizable. She brought her daughter, Emma. The girl behaved well, though the confusion in her eyes was noticeable. Natalie started talking before she could contain her tears. "I destroyed your life because of lies, and I will never forgive myself," she said. She explained how Ben had manipulated her. I listened in silence, appreciating her sincerity, but noticing there was something more. And then she blurted it out. "Do you think there's any chance we could try again?" I looked at her. That woman had been the love of my life, but what we had was broken years ago. "I know," she replied, "but please, just one chance." "No, Natalie, that's in the past. I've moved on." She nodded tearfully. I explained that it wasn't about resentment or inability to forgive. There are things that, once broken, cannot be fixed, even if both parties wish it. Before saying goodbye, I looked at Emma once more. That little girl didn't know her father was a sociopath who had destroyed lives for fun. "She needs stability," I told Natalie. "Don't ruin it." Meanwhile, the criminal case continued its course. Prosecutors brought in computer experts who analyzed Ben's computer and phone. They found drafts of the fake conversations from months before and a folder on his laptop titled Operation Vengeance, with detailed timelines and notes. Ben had been cautious. No social media, no credit cards, no traces. They believed he was working under the table somewhere, but they had no solid leads. The prosecutor in charge, Sarah, explained that they were building charges that could sentence him to 10 years in prison if he was found guilty of everything. "This isn't just a family problem," she told me. "Your brother committed serious crimes that affected several people for years. The court will take this very seriously." My parents tried to convince him to come back to face the charges. They were still in denial, believing that an apology would fix everything. I had to bring them back to reality. "Ben ruined my life for fun," I told them. "This isn't resolved by asking for forgiveness. He is going to prison, and he deserves it." By the 5th month, we had enough evidence to convict him 10 times over. We just needed to find him. But I knew Ben. I knew his arrogance would be his downfall. He needed to feel superior to everyone and couldn't resist showing off his victories. It was only a matter of time before he made a mistake. Justice was approaching, and 7 months later, they finally caught him. Boy, was the wait worth it. They arrested him 4 weeks ago in Tucson, Arizona. He was working at a construction site with a fake ID, living in a cheap motel, basically hiding like the coward he had become. And what gave him away? His own stupidity. He was drinking at a random bar and started bragging to strangers that he had fooled everyone. One of the people present suspected something was off and called the police. When they checked his fake ID, it came up flagged. Within seconds, he was in handcuffs. The call from Detective Morrison was one of the most satisfying moments of my life. "We got him," he said. "Your brother is detained in Arizona, and this time he's not going anywhere." He was extradited back in handcuffs. The trial didn't take long to begin once he was back. His public defender tried to reach a plea deal, but the prosecutor was blunt. "Your client had 6 months to turn himself in and take responsibility," Sarah told him. Instead, he chose to flee and waste state resources on a manhunt. So they went to trial. The jury deliberated for barely 2 hours. 2 hours. They returned with guilty verdicts on all charges: conspiracy, fraud, identity theft, harassment, aggravated criminal impersonation. They even added a charge of aggravated stalking, as the entire harassment had extended over several years. The judge sentenced him to 8 years in prison, followed by 5 years of probation. In addition, he was ordered to pay $175,000 in restitution, $75,000 to me for damages, and $100,000 to cover judicial and search costs. After the sentence, I made a decision that many wouldn't understand. I requested a prison visit. When we sat down, separated by the glass, he picked up the phone, and for a minute, we just stared at each other. Then he said what I had expected to hear for almost 5 years. "I know why you're here." "Oh yeah," I replied. "Do you want to mock me? See me suffer?" I leaned back in the chair and smiled. "Actually, Ben, I don't need to tell you anything. Your life speaks for itself." His face started to turn red, but I wasn't finished. "You think you won? I ruined your wedding, your relationship with Natalie." I interrupted him. "You took only one thing from me, Ben. Just one. But in exchange, you lost everything. Your wife, your daughter, your career, your freedom, and your future. You're going to spend years locked up, and I'm living the best stage of my life while you're in a cell. Tell me, who really won?" For the first time in my memory, Ben didn't know what to say. I stood up to leave, but I had one last thing to drop. "Oh, and Chloe lives in Seattle now. She's married, has 2 kids, and looks happy. I looked her up on Facebook last week. She doesn't even remember your name." I hung up the phone and walked away. I left him there in his orange uniform, finally understanding that his obsession had completely destroyed him. I thought that closed the chapter, but the universe had other plans. What happened next was so surreal that I still find it hard to process. After my last conversation with Natalie, I felt that everything had been said. Each of us went our separate ways with the certainty of having closed that cycle. Or so I thought. Last week, I was working from home when I heard a car door slam outside. Then I heard a little girl crying, and that put me on alert. I peeked out the window and nearly had a heart attack. It was Natalie's car in my parking lot. She was pulling a girl out of the back seat who was crying inconsolably. It was obvious she didn't understand what was happening, and Natalie seemed on the verge of a collapse. Before I could react, Natalie was coming up the stairs toward my door, dragging the girl with her. "I know you're there! I can't take it anymore!" she screamed. I opened the door because the neighbors were already coming out to see the commotion. As soon as I opened it, Natalie walked into my apartment without permission, shoving the girl in with her. "She's your problem now," she blurted out, and I'm not exaggerating. Her tone was completely unstable. "I never wanted to be a mother. I had Emma because Ben wanted a daughter, but now he's in prison, and I'm stuck with all of this." The little girl looked around, distraught. I stood paralyzed, not understanding what was happening. Natalie started ranting that being a single mother was overwhelming her, that Emma reminded her too much of Ben, that she needed to start over. "Why are you bringing her to me?" I asked, confused. "Because you're the only decent man I know. Ben is trash. My father lives far away, and I don't trust anyone else." "Natalie," I said calmly, "you can't just leave your daughter with me. That's not how it works. She needs you." "I don't want to be her mother," she screamed, and Emma cried even louder. "I'm going to live with my sister in California, and I'm not taking her." At that moment, I realized that Natalie had completely lost control. I told her she needed help, that abandoning her daughter was not a solution, but she was already heading for the door. "If you don't take care of her, I'll drop her off at a fire station or something, and then she'll be someone else's problem." That's when I knew I couldn't let her leave, not with Emma. I called the police. Natalie tried to leave, but I stood in front of the door until the officers arrived. What followed was a bureaucratic nightmare of reports, calls, and social services. Natalie was declared incapable of caring for her daughter and was taken to a psychiatric center for evaluation. Meanwhile, they needed to place Emma somewhere temporarily. Since I was the only stable adult with any connection to the whole situation, and my parents vouched for me when they were called, I ended up with temporary emergency custody while they decided on a long-term plan. That was 2 weeks ago. Emma is still here. My parents come daily to help. Natalie remains institutionalized and is not permitted to make decisions about Emma's well-being for now. Emma has been through hell. Her father abandoned her. Her mother tried to get rid of her, and now she is living with someone she barely knew in a completely new place. But she is stronger than she looks. She started sleeping well at night, and yesterday she asked if she could help me make pancakes. I don't know what will happen in the future. We have already contacted Natalie's parents, and they are considering applying for permanent custody. They are her direct family and have the resources to care for her. The only thing I know is that Emma is not to blame for anything that has happened. She is just a little girl, caught in the middle of an adult disaster. I can't tell you that she sees me as a father, or that everything is easy. There are hard days when neither of us knows exactly how to connect. But there are also small moments, when she hugs me without saying anything, when she smiles while playing with my parents, that make me think that maybe we are finding something similar to peace. This morning, while we were having breakfast, she asked me if she could stay here until her mom gets better. I told her yes, that she didn't have to worry about anything, that no matter what happened, she wouldn't be alone. And while I don't know how all of this will end legally, I am clear that I will not leave her adrift. What began as a family tragedy ended up opening my eyes to what truly matters. The damage my brother caused was real, and it was deep, but somehow, amidst all that chaos, something worthwhile was left to care for. Maybe I didn't plan it, but perhaps, just perhaps, this story is not going to end the way it started. Thank you for reading. I truly hope this is the beginning of something better.